as usual, we also had some science reports of interesting things that have been reported in the general scientific news. Just let me get to move on here.
Your slides are all up and ready to go.
Yes, that's right. One of them was about a pair of poisonous birds. Now, who has ever heard of poisonous birds? Well, I actually had to confess I hadn't heard of poisonous birds, but apparently there are poisonous birds in that they have poison sequestered in their feathers. And a couple of scientists found these in Papua New Guinea. They're not all that common in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, the rufous-necked bellbird and the regent whistler. And they contain a substance called batraxatoxin, which is also found in poison dart frogs. And that led us, of course, to ask the question, well, why would God make poisonous birds and frogs? And you can find out our answer to that, and also how they got to be poisonous. So that's an interesting thing that we're always learning. And so I certainly learnt something there. And so we like to share the things that we're learning as well with other people. Don't be afraid to learn new things. That's a good thing. And then we had a treasure trove of Welsh fossils. This was a fossil layer that was discovered by some scientists who actually live in Wales, and during the lockdown time over the COVID restrictions, they went fossicking around their own area, and they found this rock layer that contained what they described as a highly diverse Middle Ordovician fauna. Now, that's one of those words that you read about in the so-called geological column. The interesting thing about this layer was that it included some animals which have been classified as Cambrian in the past, and it also included examples of things that are still living. The word extant is the opposite of extinct. So extinct means dead. It's the ultimate form of death because there's nothing left of your kind, and extant means still going. So we had this mixture of extinct and extant animals and things that were previously classified as Cambrian, which led us to think about, well, where do we get these names from? Because it's good to be reminded. Cambrian and Ordovician, and another word in the geological column, all refer to Wales. So we've got a little bit of an explanation about that. So this brought up the whole issue. Have we got evolution here, or have we got after their kind? And what do these words Cambrian, Ordovician and Silurian all have in common? The answer is they have something to do with Wales, and you can read about that in our report. And then finally, we always look for interesting, quirky little things. And this was one I came across. Pollination is something I'm particularly interested in because we're all particularly interested in not only the clever design that we have in individual living things, but also how they work together, how animals, plants, fungi, all of the living things were all created to work together, as well as being really interesting in themselves. And this was about a Brazilian tree frog. Now, frogs are usually known to eat insects, but this particular frog was known to eat fruit, and it was observed by some scientists as also feeding on flower nectar. Now, when animals feed on flower nectar, they often get covered with pollen, and so they can transfer pollen from one plant to another. And so these scientists thought, well, maybe we've found the first amphibian that can be identified as a pollinator. And they concluded that this is a unique and outstanding example of unforeseen interactions between amphibians and plants. Well, it might be unforeseen to the evolutionists because they think that frogs evolved to eat insects. Not a problem if you believe in biblical creation, because what did frogs eat in the very good world? Well, it wasn't insects, it wasn't any other animals. We're not at all surprised that there is a frog that eats fruit and flower nectar. So you can read a little bit more about the details of that. And we will have another newsletter coming out fairly soon, so a little bit of a heads up from that. You can read about, and we're going backwards here, now we're going forwards. Coming up in Creation Research News, you can read about chicken scales turning into feathers, and you can read about Paleolithic pitch. That reminds us of, we've got some really interesting fossils in our new fossil museum that relate to feathers. John might like to have a few words about that.